Good morning, everyone. Welcome to What is Systemic Faithism 101. This presentation is carried out by myself, Wayne West, my colleagues, Julio Rodriguez and Irma Morales. The layout of this presentation will be as follows. First, we will engage in a terminological deconstruction of the terms. From there, we'll move forward to developing an operational definition for systemic faithism. The next section of the examination is titled Story Time, and this is i.e. the history of systemic faithism, or the how did we get here section. At this juncture, we'll also be discussing how systemic faithism shows up in religion. And then we'll move forward to our so what section, or why is this important? In this section, we'll also be examining some of the ways in which systemic faithism can be considered violent. Finally, we'll move up to our wrap-up portion, which is a checking for understanding, and there will be 3 questions based on the presentation. Before we move to the terminological deconstruction and subsequent development of an operational definition that will be utilized for the rest of this presentation, it should be noted that the Ontario Human Rights Commission defines systemic faithism as the ways that cultural and societal norms, systems, structures, and institutions directly or indirectly, consciously or unwittingly promote, sustain, or entrench differential advantages or disadvantages for individuals and groups based on their faith. Moving to the terminological deconstruction now. As a team who strives for articulacy, we figured it'd be best to start off with some low-hanging fruit, or the definitions of the terms we'll be examining. The 3 terms we'll be examining are 1, systemic, 2, faith, and 3, the suffix ism. The term systemic means relating to or noting a practice or set of beliefs that has been established as normative or customary throughout a political, social, or economic system. Merriam-Webster would define systemic as fundamental to a predominant social, economic, or political practice. Now, there were several definitions of the next term, but for easier consumption and pointed discussion, faith is defined as either a belief in God or in the doctrines or teachings of a religion, or a belief in anything, such as a code of ethics, standards of merit, or etc. And according to Merriam-Webster, faith would be the belief in the traditional doctrines of a religion, or firm belief in something for which there is no proof. Coinciding with the multiplicity of meanings like faith, the term ism has even more definitions. However, indicating prejudice on the basis specified seems to be the most relevant definition that I was able to pull from dictionary.com, while a prejudice or discrimination based on the basis of a specified attribute or an oppressive and especially discriminatory attitude or belief was most relevant for Merriam-Webster. Moving forward to the development of the operational definition, if we just take the terminological deconstruction that we just completed through the magical process that I like to call the literary distillation, we've been able to develop an operational definition of systemic faithism, which is a set of beliefs based on the traditional doctrines of a particular religion that has been established as fundamental to a predominant social, economic, or political practice, and carries a discriminatory attitude towards those who do not conform or ascribe to such beliefs. Now, all of the content just mentioned is really fancy and technical, but what does it really mean? And in the words of a previous history professor, so what? Or why is it important, and how do we get it? How do we get here? This leads us to story time, or what I'd like to call the historical overview of how we got here. Now, a statement of fact: the Judeo-Christian system, with its 6 branches and approximately 43,000 denominations, is considered the dominant religious ideology of the Western world. Let's break this down to better understand how we got here. In the year 313 AD, Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan. This decree gave Christianity official religious status within the Roman Empire and absolved Christians of the day from persecution, Approximately 70 years later, in the year 380 AD, with the Edict of Thessalonica, Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. As we continue our journey through history, we fast forward to the year 1095 to about the 1300s, or the time of the Christian Crusades. For those who are unfamiliar, the Crusades were religious wars primarily financed by the church and endorsed by the crown, which is also known as the King and Queen of England, and were waged against the Muslims of the day for control of several geographical sites that both religions perceived as holy. In this 196-year time span, there were 8 crusades, and anywhere between 1 to 8 million people perished. Without going into much detail, the Christians won the wars, and as the victors, gained the right to write history from a Christian perspective. A religious disclaimer in progress. Before we embark on the next stanza, please stand by for this religious disclaimer. Doop, doop, doop. That's my own thing. I, Wayne West, accept the Bible as a spiritually sacred text and align with the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua, a Hebraic iteration of the Greek mistransliteration of Jesus. However, I'm not a Christian. The Bible is not the only sacred text that grounds my spiritual foundation, nor do I assert that Christianity is the only way to enlightenment or spiritual salvation. As we can see, this religious disclaimer is now complete. Transporting us again through our imaginary time machine, we must briefly visit or acknowledge the European colonization of the world that took place from about the 15th century to the 20th century. This global colonization ushered in an era where Christianity, the religion of the victors, became the norm, and all other religious faiths or practices were viewed as unacceptable deviation. Now let's make this stick by tying all of this to how systemic faithism shows up in religion. According to the Guinness Book of World Records and several other statistical sites, the Bible is the #1 best-selling book of all time with over 5 billion copies sold worldwide. One of the most quoted phrases of this sacred text can be found in John 14:6, where it's quoted to say, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man or person comes to me, to the Father except through me." Bringing it full circle, faithism is a reference to the idea that, or systemic faithism is a reference to the idea that only one religious tradition owns the truth, and there is only one way to reach what many people of faith would call heaven. For example, in emphasis, the term pagan is associated with or broadly defined as anyone involved in any religious act, practice, or ceremony which is not Christian. The Western world has dominated theological thought for more than 500 years. As the Occident, or self-proclaimed superior, the Western world has problematically orchestrated a narrative that subjugates all other ideologies to the position of the Orient, or alleged inferior. Now, we cannot properly understand the implications of such a narrative without including the Eurocentric elements of white supremacy and male superiority. From this position, the iconic image of Jesus is depicted as a white man, even though it has been determined that, based on the geographical region in which the biblical stories took place, it is reasonably illogical to promote a fair-skinned, light-eyed white man as Jesus. Bringing this into deeper examination, the sociological process of assimilation into Western culture requires, as a general form of acceptance, that these truths be held self-evident. Consequently, of the 7.8 billion people on Earth, 31%, or 2.56 billion people, identify as Christian. Moving forward to our next section, it is titled Systemic Faithism or Violence in Religion. In the wake of the September 11th terrorist attack on the World Trade Center, the dismantling of a right to civil privacy through the implementation of the Patriot Act, an overwhelmingly centralized fear-mongering tactic that is promoted through multiple media outlets and the subsequent weaponizing of the American populace by the See Something, Say Something campaign, assigning oneself to anything outside of the dominant religious ideology of the Western world has now become a presumably justifiable reason to engage in violence against others who choose to be different. Case in point, according to the Department of Justice, religiously motivated hate crimes is now one of the highest indicators of social violence, second only to racially motivated hate crimes. In layman's terms, what does this really mean? Now, I can't speak for everyone, nor can I assert my opinion as fact. However, one of the overarching themes of this class and this assignment has been to share not only the expert perspective, but also our personal one. So I'll tell you what all of this means to me personally. These factors have constructed an unsafe space for the liberty and justice for all. As a nation that claims to be one under God and indivisible, this push for social conformity through the hyper-religiosity of dominant culture seems to have created more room for division and dissension than it has for community. For it is not our sameness that makes us, as a global citizenry, beautiful, but it is how our differences, our uniquenesses, our seemingly incompatible ways of believing in the divine interconnectedness of all people come together to create a masterful mosaic of spirituality. Consequently, systemic faithism is not a bridge to connection, but a barrier to it. All right, so let's check for some understanding. Question 1, what is the dominant religion of the Western world? Is it A, Islam, B, Christianity, or C, Buddhism? We'll give you about 10 seconds to choose. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you chose B, Christianity, you're correct. That means you were listening. All right, question 2. What is an operational definition for systemic faithism? Is it A, a prejudice or discrimination on the basis of a specified attribute, B, a belief in the traditional doctrines of a religion, or C, a set of beliefs based on the traditional doctrines of a particular religion that has been established as fundamental to a predominant social, economic, or political practice and carries a discriminatory attitude towards those who do not conform or ascribe to such beliefs? I'll give you another 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, if you chose answer C, you'd be correct. It is definitely that. Moving to our last checking for understanding and wrap-up question. Here's number 3. What percentage of the global populace identifies as part of the dominant religious ideology? Is it A, 16%, B, 31%, or C, 34%? 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you chose B, 31%, you're correct again. If you didn't, such is life. Go back and replay this video. No, but in all honesty, thank you for your time. Thank you for the moment and the experience. I'm currently on the East Coast, and it is approximately 5 o'clock in the morning. I hope that my team will be able to carry us to the finish line. Thank you.